Hi, everybody. I am Laureengolden. I wanted to start just by thanking you all, because if you're here, it means you're not somewhere else. And so just the time and the priority that you gave to convening, just thank you. I also wanted to do a shout out and say happy second birthday to Sofa, and a big thanks to Ted and Jerry for all you've done to bring Sociocracy further out into the world. To give you just a little overview of how I thought we could structure our time together, I thought we would start by just opening it up to some voices in the room. If anyone wants to share, why did the topic of both end thinking call to you? And just do a couple minutes there. And then I was thinking about just diving into what is polarity management. And then I was going to invite you to do an exercise where you get to explore and actually experience a polarity inside your body. And then I wanted to spend a little bit of time just zooming out a little bit to look at why is both end thinking so difficult. And then at the very end, just leaving space for clarifying questions, any reactions, things that come up for you. So with that, at this point, hang on, the next thing would be why both end thinking. I wasn't sure if anyone just wanted to share, like, you know, if you're here, like, what was it about this call that was enticing to you? Anyone want to share? Any voices in the room? And if not, that's okay. Oh, I see a hand. I just don't know how to control it. So if you can just...
I think I can just speak. Basically, I found myself using it, but not really understanding it. So it's like an instinctive thing at the moment. So what would be useful for me is to get a more objective view around it so that I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's helpful. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was interested. This is Karen Gimney again. My background is with imago relationships, and I am very interested in where the imago work and the sociocracy work intersect. So the both and thinking is a big concept in imago. So I was intrigued that this clearly is a point of intersection, and I was intrigued to hear where it connects with the sociocracy.
Cool. I'd love to hear sometime about how it intersects with imago too.
Cool.
Anyone else?
This is Barbara from
Hi,
Milwaukee. One of the books that I've been reading a lot lately is called The Holy Trinity and the Power of Three by Cynthia Bourgeault. And so she talks about the dualistic way of thinking and how we often are set into that both there's two opposite things and they are opposing each other. And I think the and is, she talks about an arising force, a denying force, and then a reconciling force that then creates a new reality in the middle of that triangle. So I'm thinking that this is going to help me think through that a little bit more. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
I'm learning great stuff. Thank you. So just on time, is that okay if we move on? Like if anyone has a burning thing that you felt the need to say, but I don't want to cut anyone off if you have something burning, but I also want to make sure that I give you time at the end to react. Okay, so hearing nothing, then I'm going to move on, and I'll go back into presentation mode, I think. Let's see how this works. Okay, so the second part was like, what is polarity management? So it was actually a book written. Barry Johnson is the guy who wrote the book almost 30 years ago on polarity management, which is a model and a set of principles for dealing with polarities, which he describes as ongoing chronic issues that are unavoidable and unsolvable. And so there is a ton of resources available. I will share links so that you can find this afterwards. Like, this time is so short that I'm not going to be able to do justice. So just consider me a little dog that's like sniffing and pointing you in a direction. Like I think if the practice of both end thinking is something that's important to you, check out this direction. I think that there's a lot of commonalities between the two of them. For one thing, they're both based on an understanding of systems. They both value both end thinking and diversity. They both focus the group's energy on the aim, or polarity management calls it a higher purpose. And they both emphasize flow of energy for the health of the group or the organization. So polarity management recognizes that there's actually two different types of thinking, either or and both end, and that they're both helpful. So it's really about choosing the type of thinking that best matches the needs of the current context. And to know that, you really have to ask, what kind of challenge is it? And polarity management gives you two types. So the first one are problems to solve. And these are difficulties with one right answer. Like, what is the capital of New York? There would be one right answer. Or something that has two or more right answers that are independent. For example, there might be several ways to get to the top of a mountain. There might be like 5 footpaths. You might have a tram that could take you up, or you could take a helicopter. But if like there was an avalanche, some of those options would disappear, but there would still be some that are left. So that's what we mean by independent. And so when it's problems to solve, your best type of thinking is either or thinking. Less visible, and this is what polarity management is very strong on, is that there's also something called polarities to manage. And these are dilemmas with one or more right answers that are interdependent. And for this, you want both and thinking. So there are polarity pairs, and this list is literally endless, but I just put some here for you to see some. Centralized, decentralized, individual, team, etc., etc. Okay. This is the part that I was going to invite you to do an exercise to explore what is the polarity and actually experience the polarity. Breathing is an incredible metaphor to understand polarities because you'll see there's two parts. There's the inhale and there's the exhale. So I'm going to invite you, if you want, to take a deep breath, a slow, deep breath in for the count of 10, and then hold it. And when you first start to do this, you might be saying, inhaling is such a wonderful thing to do. I get oxygen, it feels so good. But as you start to hold it longer, you start to go towards a downside. And you're realizing that you're getting too much carbon dioxide. And so you really, really, really want to shift and go to exhale. So at this point, I invite you to exhale. And after you're just on the downside of the inhale, going over to the exhale feels so good. You're cleaning out the carbon dioxide, but as you hold that exhale, all of a sudden you're going to start dipping down and experiencing the downside of it. There's too little oxygen, and so you're going to want to swing to the upside. So polarities is really about a dynamic dance between the two, where you get the upside, and then when you start to sense that you're in the downside of a polarity, you want to kind of navigate and shift up to the other side. This is a polarity map. I'm going to go through it more with you. There's 8 boxes. This top box is the higher purpose, which I think is similar to the aim of a group in a way, but it's really about why would we manage these two polarities? Like, what's the benefit of it? And then down here, you'll see there's another box, and this is your deepest fear. Like, if we don't manage this polarity well, what are we afraid will happen? Okay, so the danger comes in when you start to mistake a polarity to manage for a problem to solve. And in a world where we've been educated and socialized for either or thinking, this is a very easy mistake to make. So if you remember back when you were doing the inhale, and you were experiencing, oh my gosh, there's too much carbon dioxide, this is a problem, it doesn't feel good. It's moving over to the exhale is a solution. Like, if the problem is too much carbon dioxide, all we have to do is exhale, and we just clean out that carbon dioxide. The challenge comes in is that if this was an organization or a group, someone else in the group might be very resistant because they're saying, oh my gosh, I remember the last time that we exhaled, and I remember that feeling of too little oxygen, and it was just horrible, and I just don't ever want to do it again. The solution is just keep inhaling. Like, we just have to just keep inhaling. So they make polarity management talks about that there's a difference between accuracy and completeness, that if you saw, I mean, this is an image, but if you saw a vase here, you would be absolutely accurate, but your picture wouldn't be complete, that there's actually 2 faces as well as a vase. And this image is helpful because you realize that the more you see, once you switch over and you can see the faces, and then you can switch back to the vase, it gets easier and easier to do. So the more you practice shifting to see the different polarity pairs, the easier it gets to hold the both. There's a ton here, like I said, but just I wanted to point out quickly that there's some patterns. So this is a pattern here of a poorly managed polarity. And this is if they were seeing this as a problem solution thing, but you're getting a lot of the downside of it and very little of the upside. This is another one, and it might be more of a pendulum swing, but if it's not managed well, you're really going to be experiencing the downsides of both with very little. So this would be called a vicious cycle. Like, so how you manage it, it could either be a vicious cycle. I mean, and think of your families or organization when like people are just not getting along well. There's a lot of energy tangled up with each other and trying to influence each other. Versus this is a well-managed polarity. You'll see that you really get a lot of the upside of each pole. And when you dip down to the downside, the group is able to shift over. So you're really playing the benefits of each upside. So if you are holding the question, is this a problem to solve or is this a polarity to manage? They offer two questions that you could be asking. One is the difficulty ongoing? And the other one is, are there two poles that are interdependent? Again, here's some polarity pairs. So if you, it's helpful if in your group that you guys think that you're experiencing some of this, just to be aware of some of the polarity pairs. And then there's templates, so you could actually do this. And the value of this is like sometimes the systems needs feel very interpersonal. Because there's natural tendencies. Some people naturally go towards one pole and some other people might go towards the other pole. And it's gonna feel like a really interpersonal thing. So if you could put this out on paper, it puts it outside the people. And you get to, it also gives you the whole picture. Like before you're just dealing with part of the picture, but this is really about the complete picture. Okay, I also want to zoom out and just to look at why is both end thinking so difficult. And this is really for, to give us compassion for ourselves and also for one another. So both end thinking is really about thinking in wholes, thinking about wholes. And at one point, the wholeness of humanity was just one complete thing. And then somewhere over time, there's something that happened where we kind of like almost split humanity's qualities in half. And we put some on one side and said, these are strong and these are masculine. And we put some on another side and we said, these are kind of softer and they're feminine. So, you know, for example, competition would be considered, you know, the strong, and collaboration's the softer. Decisiveness, where you come in and you just have the answers, versus actually coming in with questions or inquiry. The individual, the community. I mean, you can go on, but it's just, this slide is just to point out that there's aspects of our full humanity that have kind of been split apart. Not only that, but they've actually, one side was elevated while the other side was kind of diminished. And this is one of my mentors, but he calls it the dance of contempt. So just to kind of make explicit that either or thinking was the type of thinking that has been prioritized. Barry Johnson says, I think it's like 95% of questions in school require both end thinking. So just to recognize how wired this is in our brains. And there's really few places that value or support the development of both end thinking. Barry Johnson also points out that either or and both end thinking are polarities to be managed. So, you know, this is what, if the scales were kind of tipped towards either or thinking, the goal is not to, it's not to shift it in the other way and just be like, oh, we just have to do lots and lots of both end thinking. It's really to put them back in like in relationship, a dynamic, balanced relationship with one another. I am almost done. Okay. Yeah, so the final thing is just that in a rapidly changing, like globally interconnected world that's getting more and more complex, that there's a strong competitive advantage to people and organizations who can do both either or and both end thinking, because you're going to come across lots of problems to solve and polarities to manage. And this is how you can find me. My name is Laureen. I work for an organization called Healing Our World. which really looks, it's a curated environment for people who are working towards a world that works for all. And now this is my questions and reactions. So I'm gonna exit from here and I am done. And if I talk too fast, I apologize. Anyway, any questions that come up for people, any reactions? This is really a chance for more of a global discussion.
We stop the screen share?
Yes, you can, because that's it. Yes. Thank you.
You have to do it.
Well, I have to do it. Oh, thank you. Okay. Hi again, everybody.
I wasn't sure if whoever was speaking was so it's Kimmy here. Hi.
Hi,
I'm just finding that a lot of people are really reactive to even the idea of both and thinking, which really blows my mind, because everything you're saying is how I feel about a lot of this stuff that's going on for me, is that you've just been taught one way, but this is the other half of the circle, of this other half of the sphere of understanding. And yeah, just maybe just a bit of insight from others, like do they feel the same, or is it something that in their area, or like yourself, you're getting a better response for?
So I'm hearing that as a question to the group, and it just sounds like to me like you're asking, like, am I kind of alone with this feeling, or is anyone else kind of like a shared reality? Is anyone else experiencing this? So the floor is open to anyone who wants to respond to Kimmy.
Sure. I mean, this is Matthew. Absolutely. And so often in that balance, what I hear proposed is, I love your example, Lauren, of, oh, last time we breathed out, it didn't feel really good. We didn't have enough oxygen. So let's just not do that anymore. Let's breathe in, and then we'll all be fine. That's what I experience, honestly, a lot from groups that are oriented toward collaboration. That let's get rid of the competition. Let's get rid of some of the traditional male aspects of organizational management, because that's bad. Look at the damage that it's done. And yes, it's done damage, but there is a polarity here, and it's not solved by just going to the other extreme. So thank you, Kim.
Yeah, it's also that kind of part that it's almost like you can't expect I really appreciated your, Laureen, that you're showing that it's not about trying to put the balance in the other direction. It's about the equivalence. It's about bringing the balance into them both, because there is an understanding for us all. Like, there's so many different components to this that I really love. Like, that's what really speaks to me, like the feminine, the masculine, the balance, the positive, the negative, all these different components that we should all be considering more within all of our being and how we live day to day, rather than it being just something that you do. It's not, it's not just something that's done as an external thing. It's something that should be an internal part of the journey as much as something that you see externally happening around about. So thanks, guys. That was really, really great. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay. I'm gonna pause for a second and just go to chat. And so hang on, just give me 1 second, and you guys are welcome to join me here. Is it possible to think about using 3 variables rather than 2? Wow, I'm thinking of managing paradoxes across government, business, and civic sectors. Would you like to, whoever, is that Sharon? I think you were in another.
Stephanie.
Stephanie, hi Stephanie.
Yeah, I love Barry Johnson's work. It's just so powerful. And as I've really been working at how to create the flow across the 3 sectors, there's this whole aspect of getting the downside of all 3 compared to the upside of all 3. So I'm really trying to figure out how to think of Barry's work in terms of the 3 together, because all of the facts and the way he approaches it apply to these 3, but I've never seen it applied to 3.
I like your question, and like, I mean, so I have nothing, but I'm also looking at this group, and I think you've got some really, I think there's probably experts in the room. So like, again, I'm going to toss this back to the group. Anyone want to respond? Ideas on this one? Aaron?
I'm willing to jump in again. Oftentimes when I see 3, I'm still seeing polarities to balance, but I'm seeing almost as if you have a triangle. That third point becomes a point to hang from to facilitate the balance of polarities. A triad that's been very helpful for me is a triad of source, structuring, and spirit. Mm-hmm. And so many times I'll see the structuring, the how are we proceeding forward, the what are we doing, and the spirit of what's the spirit of this organization, right? What's the hard to nail down, and yes, going back to see what is there a common source for some of the structuring that we're doing, and towards some of the spirit that is propelling forward the organization. That's been very helpful to me. I'll also say that oftentimes when I see a 4th factor come in, I'm actually seeing 2 different domains. And it's a challenge for me to step back and to ask, is there equivocation that I'm guilty of here? Is there an opportunity for me to clarify what domains that I'm working with and we're working with?
That's very helpful. And it also occurred to me that from a native perspective, a triangle is what keeps a circle from collapsing. And the triangle is body, mind, spirit. And you can make a parallel of that with the 3 sectors. So yes, anybody who would want to play on this topic with me more, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much for this presentation that you've made today. And for all those who've participated, it's helpful.
It was a good group, guys. Yeah. All right. So I'm swinging back to chat. John said, thank you, John. Say something more. So John, do you want to just speak your question? Where are you? I don't see you right now. Do you want to speak your question?
I was just saying that it might be helpful to note that when you're doing both end thinking with a polarity, it has the characteristic of flipping back and forth. Like, you're breathing now. Oh, you're exhaling. Or if you have the faces and vases, it's vase one moment and it's a face the next, and that is a characteristic of polarities that we're not used to dealing with. It feels unstable.
Which
your framework shifting all the time.
Which makes me think of John's. I don't know who is in John Schinner's, but how uncertainty is the safety issue. Anyway, that's just what came up for me. Thank you, John, for that comment.
Oops.
Go ahead. Yeah. So I want to talk.
No, me? Is that all right?
Sure. Is it Anna Ruth? I hear your voice.
Hi, Laureen. Yeah, I had written there that it was quite an eye-opener for me, startling, that you said seeing both and as well as either or as a polarity that needs to be balanced. Listening now, I just realized what for me the important thing is the middle point. So in your diagrams, you showed the loop, the figure 8, and it always goes through a point. And that's also ancient wisdom, and that also is implied in the triangle model, if you like, that you need 3 to stabilize something, is to take into account that when we, for instance, we are looking for, in a discussion or in an issue in Sociocratic meeting, we're looking for a solution. And we have both and thinking and either or thinking going on, either in our own brain or in the group. And then for a moment, coming to that stillness where neither is happening. Then a third thing, that what I then call the collective intelligence coming out of the deep cauldron of wisdom is emerging, and it is wow. So polarity for me, if I take this model, it really is that figure of 8 I'm drawing there and that point in the middle. So thank you. Yeah, that conversation is really valuable.
Thank you for bringing my awareness to that.